First at 11, a potential government shutdown is looming in Michigan tonight if lawmakers don't beat the clock.
They have less than an hour to vote and pass a new budget that was due back in July.
But Governor Whitmer is adamant that the state will remain up and running, even if a final deal is not locked down by midnight. Good evening. I'm Mike Duffy.
And I'm Carolyn Clifford. Legislative leaders say the plan includes spending cuts, higher taxes on marijuana sales, long-term road funding, and the free school lunch program.
7 News Detroit reporter Brett Cast is live in Lansing with the latest on where things stand. Brett?
The question right now is whether they will be able to vote on a budget before this midnight deadline. And I'll tell you, based on the statement we received from Governor Whitmer, based on what I've heard from lawmakers speaking to them here tonight, along with the fact that the House floor is still at ease right now, it seems unlikely that a vote could take place before midnight. As the hours tick by, still no action in Lansing. With a deadline nearing, there's still no budget in sight.
We're in the phase right now where the drafting is taking place, and we're waiting for that process to play out. It's beyond our hands at this point.
Democrats like State Representative Alabas Farhat of Dearborn remain optimistic about what will be in the budget, including nearly $2 billion in funding for roads, funding for school breakfast and lunch, and more.
Good public schools, strong public safety, and a long-term roads plan that can finally fix our roads.
We wanted to fund education appropriately. We wanted to fund public safety appropriately, and we certainly want to fund infrastructure, obviously the roads.
Republicans like State Rep Jay DeBoyer of Algonac also like what they hear, including that the budget is slightly less than the previous budget, includes no tax on tips, overtime and Social Security, and also cuts wasteful spending.
It sounds like that those tenants are actually probably going to make it into the budget. Again, I'm not sitting in that room, but what I understand is that that's where we are right now.
It does take some time to put policy language into legislative language and to get the technicalities ironed out.
Oakland University political science professor Dave Dulio has been following the budget talks, including recent statements from Governor Whitmer, who said even without a budget, the state government won't shut down and state employees should show up to work.
How unprecedented is this to pass the deadline, still be working on it, but not actually have a government shutdown?
I certainly can't think of another time or instance anywhere where this would have been the case.
How is she going to keep the government open?
Yeah, I mean, the Constitution gives her clear authority here on designating state employees to come back into work. There's a couple of options we can take legislatively, whether those are continuation resolutions or things like that. But again, we're exhausting every option to get an actual budget done on time.
I think the governor is basing that statement on that the basic framework of a budget has kind of been agreed upon, which means now it's just get some of the details done. And that should not take us weeks to do that. That should take us hours or days to do that.
Again, it's still unclear when this final budget may make its way to be on the legislative floor here in Lansing, but we will be here until that midnight deadline. Mike?
It is just about ironing out those technicalities. Thank you so much, Brett. And stay with 7 News Detroit as we continue to follow the shutdown showdown in Lansing. We'll bring you the latest information on air and online as soon as it becomes available.
Well, the clock is also ticking tonight to keep the federal government up and running.
The Senate is expected to vote again tomorrow, but it remains unclear whether that changes anything.
We want to bring in Scripps congressional correspondent Nate Reed.
Nate, thank you so much for joining us tonight. What programs will be affected by this shutdown?
Yeah, Carolyn and Mike, I just want to start by saying things are looking far less optimistic here in Washington than they are in Lansing. The reason I'm here at home and not at the U.S. Capitol is because the Senate adjourned several hours ago. They're not expected to come back into session until tomorrow morning to try for the third time to pass this short-term bill to keep the government open and funded. In that case, it would be reopening the government. The problem is it's failed a couple times already. Now, we are headed into a shutdown. That much is guaranteed. In less than an hour, the federal government will shut down. So let's get into the real-world impacts. TSA employees, be extra nice to them at the airport. They're going to be working without pay. They are deemed essential employees to protect the security of the skies in our nation's airports. So they will have to come in and work without pay along with air traffic controllers. Members of the military, they will have to work without pay as well for the time being. There's a lot of questions about how long this shutdown is going to last. And the longer it goes on, the more these employees will have to work without pay. There's also a lot of federal employees who will be deemed non-essential, meaning that they are not required to come in and work. They will be sent home. The reality is, though, a law was passed here in Washington several years ago that guarantees all federal employees, whether they're essential or non-essential, back pay for a shutdown, meaning whenever the government returns to session, whenever government funding is restored, effectively, there's a whole lot of federal employees who could have gotten a multi-week, multi-month, depending on how long this thing lasts, vacation. Again, though, for so many families, it leads to just so much uncertainty when they're going to see their next paycheck and how long they could be forced to either work without pay or stuck at home. There's also the possibility that President Trump and members of the White House are floating about possibly using this government shutdown to lay off federal agency employees permanently, trying to take that as leverage over Democrats, who they say have forced this government shutdown. Again, at this point, it's not yet clear what the next steps are. But one thing is for certain, Mike and Caroline, at midnight tonight, there will be a government shutdown. The Senate is not in Washington. The House is not in Washington. President Trump is at the White House. But again, without Congress doing anything, President Trump cannot keep the government open on his own, unlike, of course, Governor Whitmer, as you just heard there.
All right, Nate, I know the last shutdown in 2018 lasted for 35 days, so we'll wait and see.
Thank you so much, Nate.